So guys, if you can, please subscribe to the channel, comment, share and like this video. A man who murdered his 20-year-old niece and dumped her body on wasteland after she refused a forced marriage has been jailed for life. Mohammed Taroos Khan, who's 53 years old, killed Somaiya Begum before dumping her body on wasteland in Bradford in July 2022. Jurors heard that the university student was subject to a forced marriage protection order at the time of her death due to attempts by her father to force her to marry a cousin by threat of violence. Khan was convicted of murder after a trial at Bradford Crown Court. I just want to say rest in peace, Somaiya, and my condolences go out to your family. The 20-year-old student was found wrapped in a rug, tied up with a string, on land near Fitzwilliam Street 11 days after she went missing. Khan, from Bradford, who denied her murder, admitted perverting the course of justice by disposing of Miss Begum's body and trying to burn her mobile phone. A jury of 8 men and 4 women found him guilty of murder after deliberating for 9.5 hours. So the trial heard that Miss Begum, she had a 10 centimeter long metal spike embedded in her back, which had penetrated her lung when her body was found, and the court heard that strangulation was a possible cause of death. There was blood found on a table in the living room of her home, which was a DNA match for Miss Begum. Khan had turned up at the house where Miss Begum lived with her grandma and another uncle at around 3:20 on June the 25th. The 20-year-old had been living there after her dad and Khan's brother, Mohammed Yasin Khan, was said to have tried to get her to force marry her first cousin, a man she had never met. Miss Begum reported this to police, and her father and her mob were subjected to forced marriage protection order, with their daughter eventually moving with the grandma, where she was said to be very happy. Khan was prohibited from visiting the grandmother's address due to a restraining order made after he assaulted his own daughter, who lived there for a time when it was Miss Begum's home, putting a knife to her throat and threatening to chop her up back in 2016. The court heard audio captured on CCTV footage from 3 doors up when Khan arrived on the 25th of June, where it said a male voice can be heard saying, "Get back," before uttering, "I'm making a legal," and then 2 seconds later, "Get the fuck out of my face." The same male voice then says, "I'm coming back," and 15 seconds later, and the sound of running steps, according to police investigators. He said moments later the male says, "Come back, come here," which is overlapped by a female voice saying, "Nah, I'm not going." There was CCTV footage which showed Khan heading to the Timpson store at Morrison's, where he had 2 keys cut before returning back to the house. The same female voice from the first piece of audio could be heard saying, "Lock the door," according to the cops. Miss Begum's Snapchat account was active around 3:46 on the day, but her last outgoing communication from her phone was 3:54, a message sent on TikTok. Khan was seen leaving at around 3:30 the same day, and after visiting the house a number of times again on June the 25th, he is next seen the next day at around 7:30 in the morning, getting into his car on the street with gloves on and driving down an alleyway at the back of the house. The murderer then went to a car boot sale near Leeds Bradford Airport before dumping Miss Begum's body, rolled in a carpet tied together with blue string, on secluded wasteland off Fitzwilliam Street on June the 26th. As I said, Miss Begum's body was found 10 days later, heavily decomposed, with maggots infesting her face and neck. One of the first police officers who was on at the scene said the rug was around 8 feet into the wasteland and had boxes of food waste and rubbish bags on top of it. The police constable added, "The smell hit me immediately. I peeled back the rug." Guys, absolutely dreadful. How can somebody do this just because somebody doesn't want to marry? It's beyond me. Imagine this is your own family member, like your own daughter, and just because she said she don't want to marry someone, just because she doesn't want to go by what you're saying, you end up doing this. Just because people are younger than you, or just because people are your family, does not mean that they're your possession. Honestly, guys, people like this infuriate me. And the thing is, if you're that concerned that you've give your daughter's hand in marriage and she don't want to do it, you go marry the geezer yourself then. Absolute jokers, man. So Somaiya was not actually the first victim of this issue that was within her family, because her aunt and her cousin also gave evidence. So Somaiya's aunt stood in the witness box and her cousin, and they told her what they had experienced at the hands of their brother and father. So Somaiya's aunt said she herself had been beaten by Somaiya's father, who's the defendant's brother, and his daughter told of an incident where Khan had threatened to chop her up. Both, led by Somaiya's example, stood up against the treatment they had suffered. Big respect going out to you women. At Bradford Crown Court, it was heard that Somaiya was in a happy and good place before she was killed. The prosecutor, in his closing statement, Jason Pisser KC, said that Somaiya's killing couldn't be more dishonourable. She was a 20-year-old university student studying biomedical science, and she was working as a part-time carer. She took care of her gran, and in the hours before her death, she was just doing normal things like she'd return home from work, she was watching Netflix, and it was actually stated in court that when her father was around, she couldn't even watch TV. A solicitor in court stated that she was bright, hardworking, and brave, and he said, despite the terrible cruelty we've heard she suffered at the hands of her father, she was brave enough to report him to the police, standing up not only for herself, but also protecting her young sister from the misery of a forced marriage. Despite the oppressive life she lived under the brutal tyranny of her father, she managed to win a place at university and begin a new, happier life away from him, away from that oppression. Somaiya's aunt had warned her uncle to protect her against her father. So this is the uncle that was actually with the gran. And no one thought of Khan, who was the subject of a restraining order, was prohibited from living the property where she lived, and it was him that ended up murdering her. So the judge stated the facts of the case. He said, the events that led to the death of Somaiya Begum was explored in great detail in the trial. She was your niece. You lived at 3 different addresses. In about 2019, when she was 18, Somaiya moved out to your brother's home, as she made it clear that she did not wish to marry any of her cousins in Pakistan, as he had promised a hand to him, even though she did not consent to the marriage. She was an intelligent young woman of spirit and courage. In September 2020, she was made the subject of a forced marriage protection order. However, when she moved to her grandmother's, she found freedom and was enrolled as an undergraduate student in Leeds. Friday the 24th was an ordinary day in the life of Somaiya Begum. She returned home from work after midnight, and the following day was well happy talking on the phone to relatives and friends and ordering takeaway for lunch. You, Mr. Khan, had only limited contact with family members at that property where she was in the weeks leading up to June the 25th. On the afternoon and evening after the 25th of June, for no obvious reasons, you made a series of 7 visits to the house captured on CCTV. Your brother saw you in this house at around 5 o'clock. At around the same time, he realized Somaiya wasn't present. He went on to say, you murdered your niece between 3:30 and 5 o'clock on the afternoon of 25th of June. I reached that conclusion from all the evidence, from her movements and the use of her phone. A pathologist was unable to give a precise cause of death because of the extent of decomposition, but she noted there was damage to Somaiya's neck and a metal spike embedded into the right side of her back. She said of the neck injuries, she couldn't pass out strangulation at death. She could not either say any of those injuries would have led to death, but could say that there was no natural disease or illness that could have caused that death. She could say that there had been trauma, and she was confident Somaiya had been killed. So guys, as I said, he's been told to serve life with a minimum term of 25 years. Now, guys, in my opinion, I think there's more that needs to be done with regards to these protection orders of forced marriages. Thing is, this forced marriage prevention order, it wasn't even worth the paper that it was written on, because it didn't stop her uncle tracking her down and killing her. It didn't work. More needs to be done. And the thing is, when the victim actually tells the police, there's more of a heightened risk, because the family may think, okay, they've gone against our backs, they've dishonored us, they've gone to the police, so we need to take it in our own hands. No, that is not right. Just having an order ain't going to work. In cases like this, you're looking at either changing your identity, changing location, you're looking at ensuring that there's actually additional safety measures in place for the person. And I believe on the back of this, everybody involved in this case, the authorities, the police, they need to look at what part they played in this as well. That's my opinion, guys. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Once again, I just want to say rest in peace, Somaiya. It's your boy GC. Keep it locked, keep it real.